SMU could be staring down the barrel of playing Clemson without Cade Klubnick.
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yep, that's right. We'll get into the injury news for the Clemson QB in just a second. Welcome to Locked On SMU here on a Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Appreciate you making me your first listen of the day. And our episode today is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if the bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the FanDuel app today. Also coming up on our final show of the week, what the offense has to look like in order to exploit another Clemson weakness. Plus, I'll give my game picks and how I think the game is going to unfold later on as we close out the show. So stay tuned for that. But, man, by the way, I'm Grayson Singleton. Glad you're with me. The Cade Klubnick news, that sucks. Because yes, the line's going to swing in SMU's favor, and, you know, the odds are going to go up that SMU wins the game. But when you go into a high-profile game like this, you want to see if you can beat the other team at its best. It's going to be the same for Miami when the Hurricanes come to town in a few weeks. You're going to want to see Carson Beck, and you're going to want to see Ruben Bain and Malachi Toney and all those dudes that are making national waves because you want to beat the best. And it looks as if, following this over the last 36 hours or so, it's looking as if it's a 70-30 proposition that Cade Klubnick doesn't play. He's got an ankle sprain that he suffered last week, hadn't practiced up until like Wednesday or Thursday. And when you hear the reports that there is growing concern among the program that somebody won't play, you're teetering on the brink of him not playing. And that looks like that's going to be the case, is that Cade Klubnick, I'm going to operate under the assumption that Klubnick is not going to be able to go for the game against SMU, which is a bummer. At least for me as a fan of college football, like that to me is a bummer because I was looking forward to playing against him. Now, how does that change things for Clemson? And let's get out of the way Cade Klubnick possibly play. Let's get the 30% that I just labeled out of the way. And that might be generous, by the way. It could be 80-20. But if Cade does gut it out and is able to go and is cleared to go and is allowed to go by the coaching staff, his athleticism and mobility are certainly going to be handicapped to a degree that he is going to be a different player. And their offense gets a jolt from him getting out of the pocket and even him on designed quarterback runs too, because it just gives you a numbers advantage in the box when you can just run the quarterback power and whatnot. So that goes out of the way because they're not going to put him at harm's way to severely injure that ankle for the rest of the season. And look, the ACC is still wide open. And, you know, a lot of things could happen. We talked about that earlier in the week. Now, Clemson's going to have some help in terms of getting back into the ACC championship game push because they've already lost 2 conference games, one of them being to Georgia Tech, who is the best team in the conference outside of Miami. So they're not going to want to jeopardize him for the remainder of the year, at least not yet. But the fact that he'll be unable to maneuver out of the pocket and escape and get away from pass rushers already is going to take away an element of the Clemson offense, I think. And it's a dangerous thing to take away because the pass rush has gotten better and better and better for SMU as the season has gone on. Cam Robinson is starting to hit his stride. Isaiah Smith is rounding into form. They're getting pressure up the interior with Jeffrey Mbaugh and Terry Webb. So especially if you can't get away from that interior pressure and make stuff happen and spin out and keep the play alive, you're going to be severely compromised. And that's what I think Cade Klubnick would be. Also, again, the quarterback designed run game is going to be pretty much obsolete at that point in time. I mean, if you watched the Red River game last week which commenced just after SMU defeated Stanford, you saw the quarterback run game of the Oklahoma Sooners go out the window. Why? Because John Mateer was hurt. So I would expect something similar if Klubnick is able to go. Now, if Klubnick is not able to go, Christopher Vezina would be the quarterback behind center for Clemson. And I turned on some film from Chris Vezina from his high school days. He was a class of 2023, was the number 8 quarterback in the country in that cycle. And he's got a good arm. He had a good arm. And the thing that stood out to me from his high school tape was touch, ball placement, and accuracy. It was great. It was absolutely great. And he made NFL level throws into tight windows, into guys who didn't have a whole lot of separation. Sideline throws, some of the things I've talked about with Kevin Jennings, how he places it on the boundary, giving his receiver and only his receiver a chance. Christopher Vezina was doing that in high school. Really pro-level throws. The problem with Chris Vezina is that I watched him run on tape, and I'm like, I mean, he's got something, but that's not going to translate to college, that kind of speed. And I looked, and he ran a 4.740. So whichever way you slice it, whoever's behind center for Clemson is going to be very close to a sitting duck in the pocket. Klubnick will have a little bit of mobility, but quite frankly, if you watch Christopher Vezina's highlights, Cade Klubnick on a bum ankle might have more athletic ability than Chris Vezina at the college level. So this is going to be a day for the pass rushers to tee off for SMU. Your Isaiah Smith and Cam Robertson, we need to hear from you. Up the middle with Mba and Webb, we got to see from you, because you're not going to be chasing around a quarterback. I also wonder, and this is curious to me, how Scott Simons decides to play this, because there are really good receivers on the outside, especially Brian Wesco Jr., who's averaging 18 yards per catch. You have to figure out something to do with that dude, because he's good. He's really good. And I don't know how much man coverage you play in this game against SMU. Man coverage is kind of going by the wayside, especially in college football these days. But it'll be interesting to see if Scott Simons smells blood in the water with either a hampered quarterback or a statue back there and sends extra men on the rush. I'm interested to see if he heats up those quarterbacks, especially because heating up a hurt quarterback, I mean, you're already dealing with the pain in your mind. Now you got to deal with 6 dudes running at you that can play some games with you mentally. So I'm interested to see if Scott Simons just goes for the kill and blitzes a little bit more than is the norm for him. There's a lot of things schematically that I think could ride on whether Klubnick is able to go or if it's going to be Vezina. And if you're wondering about Vezina this year, or have we seen him in college, his stat line this year, 7 of 14 for 37 yards and a pick. In his career, I'm going to make sure I get this right for you guys. In his career, Vezina has thrown 48 passes, completed 26 of them. That's 54%. 227 yards and a pick. He has not thrown a touchdown. He has scored a rushing touchdown on a 35-yard gain somehow, because that dude is slow. But he has not thrown a touchdown in a college football game. So you're talking about a really inexperienced quarterback. He is in his second year with the program, so there is that. He's been there, but hadn't taken a whole heck of a lot of snaps, hasn't had a whole lot of production, has a live arm, a really impressive arm. If you go back and watch his high school tape, not a whole lot of athleticism. So if it is him behind center, man, pass rush, get to him. You can't let him be comfortable. If you're Scott Simons, go ahead and heat him up so he can see different sorts of looks and different sorts of pressures. And SMU's defense should be able to thrive in this one if it is the backup that goes against the Mustangs on Saturday afternoon. Coming up next, you've got to be multidimensional to beat Clemson because they struggle with it. We'll talk about that next on Locked On SMU. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players have delivered when it mattered the most. Let's go ahead and break it down. Y'all watched Thursday Night Football last night. I caught the end of it, and Joe Flacco and Jamar Chase, man, were absolute dogs. I mean, the old Joe Flacco, over 340 yards, and he leads the team down the field to set up Evan McPherson for the game-winning field goal. So, hey, hats off to the old man Joe Flacco right there. He got traded and got his first win with his new team a couple of weeks later. And if you've been watching, you know, Cincinnati, their offense has always been delivering, especially that man Jamar Chase, who had 30 fantasy points without even having a touchdown, and then he did have a touchdown on top of it. Glad I wasn't playing somebody who had him this week, because I definitely would be cooked. And just like they delivered for Cincinnati, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive and fuel your game days only with DoorDash. Terms apply, and the promo period runs through November the 18th. We're also brought to you by SupplyHouse. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with SupplyHouse. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast? For a project, SupplyHouse has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. And get this, join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit SupplyHouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's SupplyHouse.com. Real people, real service. All right, welcome back. Appreciate you guys for watching on YouTube and listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, let's talk about a key for SMU in this game. And I'm going back through Clemson's games this year and trying to find a common thread of how can this team be as bad as it is? I mean, I can't remember there was a time in the middle of October where Clemson was 3-3 in the Dabo Swinney era once he really got his touch up and going. And here's what I found. Here's a common thread that I found. When you can remain multidimensional on offense, they struggle. They struggle on defense when you have no idea how you can hit them. I think none is more apparent. We'll get to the Georgia Tech game in a second. But take the Syracuse game, for instance. Syracuse, on this day, when they beat the Tigers to drop Clemson to 1-3, ran the ball for 154 yards. That's 4.1 yards per carry. That's the best that they've had this season. And they did it in a variety of ways. Sure, they used the two running backs. Jonte Cook got in the action at wide receiver. They diversified the way they did it. And then the combination of Steve Angeli and then Ricky Collins threw for 279 yards and 3 touchdowns. They got Jonte Cook going in through the air. Justice Ross Simmons had a pretty good game, 5 catches for 53. They hit them from a variety of ways. And I know I'm saying something that's completely elementary in terms of the understanding of football, but this team, when you can, even when they stop it for a play or two, if you can stick with the run game and then hit this team with the play action and the passes down the line of scrimmage on the perimeter and then hit them deep for a couple of times, Clemson could start scrambling defensively. Georgia Tech, now they run the ball very well on anybody, and they run it a lot, but they ran it 42 times for 147 yards. And then Haynes King supplements that by throwing the ball for 211 yards. You see where we're going here. And I don't know if the run game is supposed to supplement the pass or vice versa. But you have to remain one-dimensional because the proof is here against Power 4 teams. This is the proof that when you attack and you commit to attacking from multiple angles, multiple ways, and multiple play styles, Clemson has a hard time stopping you. Go back to the LSU game even. Clemson gave up 3 points to LSU in the first half. They gave up 14 in the second half. Why? Garrett Nussmeier finally got going, and they ran the ball for over 100 yards. Caden Durham ran it for 4.4 yards per carry. Xavier Thomas, 3 carries for 26 yards. Talk about diversity of the way you run the football. Because if you haven't watched LSU a whole heck of a lot, I probably told you 3 carries, 26 yards. Okay, that's not a big deal. He's a wide receiver. Xavier Thomas is a wide receiver for LSU. So they are doing this. There are teams that have done this in a myriad of ways. So you look at those teams and you're like, what do those teams have? Georgia Tech, LSU, and Syracuse. Well, they have playmakers both at running back and at wide receiver. SMU fits that category. They have a quarterback. Well, Georgia Tech does. But they have a quarterback that can do multiple things. They also have a quarterback that can make all the throws. And Garrett Nussmeier made all the throws. Now, he's kind of looked progressively worse as the season has gone on. But Steve Angeli can make all the throws. Haynes King, regardless of what you want to think about him or not, and I know it's jaded because of his time at Texas A&M, but dude that can make a decent amount of the throws. Kevin Jennings can make all the throws. And the more you spread this defense out, and the more that you keep it off balance when running, even when you're looking like you're going to throw the football, that opens up passing lanes for everything else involved. It is also worth noting this. If you can keep them off balance, that exacerbates their inability to take the football away. We talked about this at the beginning of the week. Clemson's turnover differential is -4. And Cade Klubnick and the offense have not been shy of giving the football away. Klubnick's thrown 5 picks, which, if you want to look back on this, I'm going to try to tell you how uncharacteristic this is from Cade Klubnick. Cade Klubnick, in his past 2 seasons, 2024, he threw 6 interceptions the entirety of the year. 2023, he threw 9 interceptions the entirety of the year. He is on pace to shatter that. So he's been uncharacteristically irresponsible with the football. And Clemson's turnover margin certainly has reflected just that. They've also fumbled the ball a couple of times too. So they do not take care of the football, and they don't take the ball away that impressively. So if you're SMU, I think your main foundation of this game has to be built on, yes, we're going to take advantage of the backup quarterback if Vizina is the one that ends up behind center. But you got to make sure that you keep this defense spread out on its heels. And they're not very good at taking the ball away at all already. I don't think they're going to be able to do it if you're in rhythm and you're the one dictating the game when you're on offense. So that means get the ball to the playmakers and let them cook. Get the ball into the hands of your running backs, let them cook. And then Kevin Jennings just make the right decision. And that's why I talked about Jennings versus Klubnick yesterday, because with the kind of flow that Kevin Jennings is in, with the offensive coaching staff and whatnot, you should be able to turn this game over to him and say, distribute, make plays when you need to, make big throws when we call upon you to do so, and we're going to get out of here with a win. Because Clemson has shown that when the quarterback just makes plays and doesn't cost us, we're going to be just fine. Going back to those games that I referenced, and we'll end it here. Haynes King, no touchdowns, but you know what he didn't do? Turn the football over. Steve Angeli, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Ricky Collins came in and threw a touchdown, and you know what he didn't do? Throw a pick. You go back to the LSU game, if I'm going to pull this up right fast, Garrett Nussmeier, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. They struggle taking the football away. I don't know what they did against Mac Johnson and against whoever plays quarterback for Boston College, nor do I care, because those are bad football teams, and SMU is not a bad football team. So if you take care of the football and remain diverse on offense, you're going to have a pretty successful day, assuming you get those 2 big boys on the defensive line blocked up, Parker and Woods. Coming up next, how do I think this game is going to go? My prediction for it, you may be able to infer a couple of things, based on the first couple of segments. We'll be back to wrap it up after this. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. That's exactly where Rugiet's Go Long comes in. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula so you can get hard and go the distance. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. Get ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom. Head to Rugiet.com, that's Rugiet, Rugiet.com, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 15% off your first order. That's Rugiet.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Make sure to use our code so they know we sent you. We're also brought to you today by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss because right now new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use any way you want across the app. It makes watching football just a little more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. And with live betting, same-game parlays, and constructing a lineup with player props, you know what that means. Any way you want to bet, you can do it on FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, let's close it up here on Locked On SMU for the week. And, we'll be back with post-game reaction like we always are. But how do I think this game's going to play out? So, you got an SMU offense. Let's break down the context. An SMU offense that has found its stride, and the numbers I don't think are going to be beautiful. They're not going to knock your socks off for SMU. That's not the world we live in with the Mustangs. But efficiency, finishing drives, converting third downs, opportunistic fourth down conversions, that's going to be the name of the game. Now, I will say this. For SMU, here's what I'm looking for. Can they get back to running the football? And I've mentioned TJ Parker and Peter Woods, who are both going to be top 15 picks in the draft in April. But their presence alone, if SMU is going to be, it runs the football on them, they might be able to run the football on anybody. And I know Miami is lurking in the near future, and Miami's going to be a different beast. But you want to gain confidence for that game, go run the ball against these dudes. And we talked about the continuity on the offensive line earlier in the week. If those guys can get a push, obviously you're probably going to go with some duo blocks, some double teams to try to move the 2 premier defensive linemen. But if you can move the football on the ground against Clemson, that's going to bode well. It's going to be a good sign for the rest of the season if you're SMU. Also, what I'm looking for SMU, continue to play turnover-free football. And Kevin Jennings, 1 interception against Syracuse, none against Stanford, and he has looked so incredibly impressive in these first 2 games in conference play. So can he continue to play clean football? Because if he plays clean football, if you're going up against a backup, I don't care if you're on the road, they will win the game. SMU will win the game if Kevin Jennings plays clean, turnover-free football. Because I think SMU is due to take the ball away a couple of times. Whether you can chalk it up as a Clemson giveaway on a bad play or SMU's defense being really good and forcing the takeaway, however way you want to slice it, they're due for a takeaway in this game, maybe even 2. And if you can win the turnover battle against Clemson, you're in good position to win the game. Regardless, by the way, of if it's Klubnick or Vizina, because Cade Klubnick, by the way, has shown he's got a propensity to turn the ball over. And by the way, Cade Klubnick seems like he's this year's version of Carson Beck. Because remember, we thought Klubnick was going to be the number 1 pick in the draft, or at worst, the second quarterback taken. He's fallen out of the first round completely in a lot of mock drafts, if not all of them. So just an interesting storyline there. Defensively, for SMU, what am I looking for? Well, this might be the best group of wide receivers that you faced. And I know that the stats aren't going to be that gaudy of this year for guys outside of Brian Wesco, but they do have athletes on the outside. TJ Moore, Antonio Williams. At some point, Antonio Williams is going to get going for Clemson. And then the running back, Adam Randall, is a really good player too. He already has 3 receiving touchdowns to go along with his 5.4 yards per carry. So defensively, you're going to have your hands full stopping the run with Randall. But I think if Vizina's in there, that gets a little bit easier because Clemson gets a little bit more predictable. But you got to stop the run, and you got to have a plan for the athletes on the outside. Take care of the football. And then my last thing here is this. Whoever is behind center, get after him. Just get after him. And Cade Klubnick has not been sacked a whole heck of a lot. Only 7 times this year. But he's a hard dude to sack. Vizina is a whole different animal. And not in a good way. Like, that dude cannot... He's not mobile at the D1 college level. He didn't really look very mobile at the high school level. And yeah, he ran away from a couple of defensive linemen in his high school clips, but that dude ain't fast. The dude's not running away from anybody. So, man, get after him. And maybe blitz a little bit more just because he hasn't seen a whole heck of a lot at the college level. Again, he's only thrown the ball 48 times in his career, and that spanned 2 years in college. There's blood in the water here, man. There is absolutely blood in the water for Scott Simons today. So, what's my pick? I have SMU objectively staying undefeated in conference play. I think SMU gets more chances because the defense gives them more. And I just think the Clemson offense just is going to be stuck in neutral at the best with the backup quarterback. And Kevin Jennings plays another game of clean football. I think there's a chance he gets sacked a couple of times because I just think that Peter Woods and TJ Parker, they're too good not to get home at least once or twice between the two. But I see SMU doing what it needs to do to go on the road and winning this game. It's not an early morning kickoff, so there's not going to be the jet lag or, hey, we traveled across the country and we're still a little bit sleepy here. No, that's not going to be the case. It's a 2:30 kick, and I think the Mustangs get it done. I would say something along the lines, and I'm going to operate under the assumption that Chris Vizina is going to be the quarterback for Clemson. 27-14. SMU wins. They go to 3-0 in conference play. You got one more road trip to the East Coast on this particular slate, on this particular trip, when you go to Wake Forest, and then good vibes returning home for Miami. That's what I'm looking at here. So SMU 27-14 is my pick going into the game tomorrow afternoon. All right, that'll do it for this week on Locked On SMU. We'll see you back here for postgame. Make sure you checked out Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Kenton Gibbs and Alex Dono always take you through some of the more intriguing storylines in the most interesting conference in the country. Check out Locked On ACC wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. We'll talk to you guys soon. Take it easy, everybody.